I would now like to invite our last speaker for this session, Mr. P. Balaji, Chief Regulatory and Corporate Affairs Officer from VodafoneIdea. Mr. Balaji.
Thank you, Ibrahim, and Voice&Data. I think great choice of topic and wonderful speakers. I guess my job is relatively simple because all I have to do is to try to skip a lot of my slides, which have been covered by earlier speakers quite eloquently. It's interesting the way you talk about voice and data. I think we had someone talk about data earlier. It was wonderful. That was Mr. Kathuria talking about data being the new oil. And then I think Harmeen brought it back into perspective very well, saying that AI provides the maximum opportunities in vernacular voice. That was wonderfully said. And obviously, the huge, should we say, growth in the voice traffic in the last few years, at least last 2 or 3 years, is a clear indication that voice is not dead. Voice will continue to be catered to from a consumer perspective. Other speakers have spoken pretty eloquently on the technology part of it. I'll skip a few slides, as I said, if it's repetitive in nature. I guess this part is well understood about digital transforming everything we do. We've been talking about it for about 10 years, about how mobility, how cloud, how broadband is going to revolutionize life. All that's happened is it's got accelerated with advances that have taken place in every segment of the sector, right from semiconductor chip to devices to networks and technology, and the huge rollout that's happened since. So it's impacting societies, individuals, businesses, the way they communicate and the way they add value to people around them. The rapid growth of digital consumption, I think Harmeen covered pretty eloquently. So other than to say that the huge shift that's happened from India being a pure wireless driven country, and therefore using data consumption primarily through the mobile and smartphone revolution is something that we all are pretty aware of, so I'll skip this part of it. IoT was touched upon, but I think again Harmeen talked about from a consumer point of view on stuff on farming that goes up pretty early in my deck as well. But whether it's environment, energy, home automation, identity and tracking, logistics, building management, connected cars, healthcare, she talked about. A whole bunch of these things are starting to happen. I showed the first slide about Stronger Together. We are brought together by a merger that Rajat talked about of Vodafone and Idea. Strong global and local presence, leading a player globally from a point of view of IoT. And I can say that each of these use cases is not unique. However, as everything else that happens in India, the opportunities are limitless because the kind of social problems that IoT can help address is significant in nature. I think the DNA of India from a digital perspective is extremely high. So this is one space that has actually, should I say, started to move towards the right side of digital inclusion. So it's the Aadhaar, at least that you can say, is a significant empowerment tool in the hands of every consumer, whether it's the first 300 million people that Harmeen rightly talked about being hugely digital literate, or the next billion, they are onboarded too. Jan Dhan, and surely the intent, I'm sure, of the base that we have built up on Jan Dhan and the payment banks and related small bank accounts is going to be tremendous. You know, if you look at the data consumption and the smartphone, that part is well covered before, so I'll not stress upon it. But it's important to say that even a thing like UPI, which got added, is so intuitively simple for people to transact that it's kind of outpaced the entire credit card transactions in just about 18 months' time by miles. And that's again an indication that the movement of the 1 billion people towards being more digitally savvy and so on is only kind of getting stronger. And again, an important role in all of these platforms, and I must mention this, is that in the last few years, government platforms have become a great way to kind of accelerate digital inclusion. So there's a GSTN network and its initial teething problems, but the way you've kind of gone ahead and got $50 billion kind of being collected in the matter of 6 months, it's an indication that social platforms are there. And further, there are a lot of entrepreneurs that are out there, younger generation that's basically saying, we want to work and create work for others. We want to work for ourselves and create work for others. And they're kind of using this digital DNA to kind of make a huge, huge impact. And I'm sure the impact of that in coming years will be even more. I guess 5G talked a lot about. Broadly, everyone is convinced that it's enhanced mobile broadband with mission critical communications and massive IoT, which will be three massive use cases for this. Clearly, ecosystem got together, applications for trial have been made to the government. Hopefully, we are told that in June those trials can start so that India-specific use cases can start to be put in place so that the business case for 5G actually is actualized faster. And while all of this is going on, a couple of slides, and I think it's wonderful that Voice&Data and Ibrahim have the CTO talk about consumers and someone else talk about something else. It's all about bringing convergence here. So let me just not talk too much on this part of it, but to say that all of these things that you see, whether it's heterogeneous networks, which means not just one single macro BTS architecture, but many more of them, millimeter wave transmission, again, I can well back to my technology days with Ericsson and Lucent and other places that I can say it's huge advancement that have taken place where propagation characteristics for some of these spectrum bands were seen as horrible and advances have been made there. Full duplex communication, which means while you transmit, you can also receive. Massive MIMO, cloud-based networking, network slicing, energy harvesting, all of these, as we speak, are being already incorporated in networks that are being set up by the operators that have come together through consolidation. So the 4 operators, I can definitely speak for our company and for other private operators that have actually made huge investments in these. And so you're already getting to being 5G ready almost, where the need for spectrum is not the big driver for this, but to actually get the entire ecosystem and the use cases working. Clearly, the skills required in this new world is dramatically different. You need to have new set of digital skills that focus on machine learning algorithms for big data, on IoT-focused design, on GPS development, cloud-based security, and engineering design required for these converged architecture networks. Again, not a problem. I think the talk about universities and the young talent emerging from there, the closer work that we are doing as industry with academia is again driving that whole behavior dramatically. And I'm quite optimistic to say that this whole skill that we talk about is going to only enhance. Each of these, in a way, are driven towards a couple of things. One is to drive the most sort of scarce resources, so bring to the lowest cost of delivering services. And second is to be very, very focused on providing the best possible consumer experience. And that's the two things that are the drivers for some of these technologies and the skills that we as operators are imbibing in. I guess the last slide that I would like to talk about, or the second last slide, is there stuff out here to be done, and there's a role for government and the regulator on all of these matters. A lot has been talked about NDCP, great document, came in August of last year. We are hearing almost nearing about 6 months since, time that we moved to execution. And I think that is the big opportunity and challenge, if I may say, for the next 12 months. Once the new government is in place and you have the policies being implemented very rapidly, which I'm quite sure it will happen, that all of these issues will be appropriately addressed. Just a last word on VodafoneIdea, exciting place. The largest integration anywhere in the world. We're absolutely, thanks to the innovation that exists in India and the kind of talent that we have in the ecosystem of not just VodafoneIdea as a company, but our vendor, partners, and everybody else. We've basically said that what takes 4 years across the world for integrating will take less than 2 years in India. So we are driving change in terms of basically putting ourselves focused on how do we evolve the network and our company to be relevant in the new world, to be even more customer-centric in our approach, and therefore, right from technology on 5G radio transport, voice core and data core, making huge investments where we can say that All the things that you spoke about in this panel about new services, IoT, 5G, all of those elements can be actually built in a very effective and cost-effective manner and an extremely timely manner. So in short, I would say we are in for a wonderful ride as a nation, and I'm sure that all of us who represent different facets of the telecom sector and those who are not represented and out there among the august audience here will have a huge contribution to make as we create the $1 trillion digital economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Balaji. I think that was a very, very insightful presentation. And obviously, as the largest telecom operator in the country, I think there are quite a few things that VodafoneIdea will have to do to be able to continue the crown on your head. Thank you so much.